Homeless girl took a beating to save a biker. Then 500 Hell's Angels showed up. The wind whipped down the narrow alleys, carrying the smell of damp trash, exhaust fumes, and the faint scent of food from distant restaurants. Lily had grown used to it. At 19, she had learned that the streets could be both cruel and strangely comforting. The city had no sympathy, no care for those who fell through its cracks, and yet it had taught her to survive, to notice the small moments of beauty hidden in the shadows. She pulled her threadbare coat tighter around herself, trying to keep the chill from seeping into her bones. Her backpack, worn and patched in several places, held her few belongings. A couple of old sweaters, a notebook filled with sketches she sometimes drew to distract herself from hunger, and a small, tattered blanket that had been a gift from an older woman she had met at a shelter. Months ago. That blanket was more than a piece of cloth. It was comfort, a reminder that not everyone had forgotten her. As she walked along the familiar streets, she noticed the usual sights: the flickering neon signs above closed shops, the occasional drunk staggering home, and the stray cats darting between piles of garbage. But tonight, something felt different. There was a tension in the air, a kind of electric unease that made her instincts prick up. She had learned to trust her instincts on the streets. They had saved her more times than she could count. Turning a corner, Lily heard voices, angry, loud, and close. She slowed her pace, her heart beating faster, but curiosity got the better of her. She peered down a narrow alley that usually led to nothing but trash and broken bottles. Tonight, however, it held a scene that made her freeze in place. A man, dressed in leather and wearing a helmet under his arm, was cornered by 3 others. Their faces were shadowed by hoods, but their body language was clear. They were threatening him, and he looked helpless. Lily's heart lurched. She didn't know this man, hadn't seen him before, but something about the situation made her stomach twist in anger. She couldn't just walk away. For a moment, she considered turning the other way. She had learned that the streets were dangerous, that stepping into someone else's problem could end badly. But before she could make up her mind, the man looked at her, eyes wide, and that look, frightened, pleading, made her decision for her. She stepped into the alley, voice trembling but loud enough to be heard. "Hey, leave him alone," she shouted. The 3 men turned toward her, and for a brief second she felt fear grip her. They were bigger than her, stronger than her, and clearly used to intimidating people. But then she saw something else in their eyes, surprise. No one ever stepped in for strangers here. The man she had spoken up for stumbled backward slightly, relief washing over his face. "You don't have to," he started, but Lily cut him off. "I do," she said firmly. "It's wrong to hurt someone just because you can." The men laughed, a harsh, cruel sound that made her stomach tighten. One of them stepped forward, clearly deciding that this girl wasn't worth much. Lily swallowed her fear and squared her shoulders. She couldn't run, couldn't hide, not now. She had made a choice and she would stand by it. Then it happened. They lunged not at the man but at her. She had expected them to threaten her, maybe shove her aside, but she had not expected the force, the anger, the sheer intensity of their aggression. She was pushed, tripped, and fell to the cold, hard ground. Pain shot through her arms and legs, but she didn't move away. She got back up as quickly as she could, shielding the man with her body, standing between him and the attackers. "Stop!" she yelled, voice cracking, but her eyes burned with determination. "You don't have to do this." The man behind her took a step forward, ready to help, but she shook her head. "No, it's okay, I've got this." She didn't know why she said it. Maybe it was bravado, maybe it was instinct. But in that moment, it didn't matter. She was willing to put herself in the line of danger to protect someone she had never met. The alley seemed to stretch endlessly. The lights flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. Her hands were scraped, her knees bruised, and her coat was torn, but she refused to give in. She noticed a small crack in the wall where pigeons nested, and it struck her how life continued even in harsh places, unnoticed and persistent. She drew strength from it. The man she had saved was trembling, clearly impressed and grateful, though he could do nothing to stop what was happening. Lily could see the fear in his eyes, but also a flicker of hope. Sometimes courage was contagious. Minutes, or maybe it was only seconds, passed like hours. Lily's breath came in short, sharp bursts. Every time one of the attackers raised a hand, she braced herself, ready to take the blow. She had never imagined herself as brave, never thought of herself as someone who could stand up for another person. But tonight she realized that bravery wasn't about strength or size. It was about heart, about standing firm when fear wanted to pull you away. She remembered the old woman from the shelter who had once told her, "Even when the world forgets you, kindness and courage will find a way to shine." Lily had thought it was just a nice saying, something to keep people hopeful. But now, in the alley, battered and shaking, she understood. Courage could shine even in the darkest places. The man behind her whispered something, but she couldn't hear him over the pounding of her heart. She only knew that she would not let them hurt him. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to escape, but she rooted herself to the ground. The alley was narrow, the air cold and heavy, and yet she felt a strange clarity. She was here for a reason. The attackers seemed confused now, unsure of what to do with this girl who refused to back down. They had expected fear, submission, maybe tears. But Lily had given them none of that. She stood there, bruised, bleeding slightly from small cuts on her hands, and yet unyielding. Somewhere deep inside her, Lily realized that this moment would change her life. She didn't yet know how, didn't yet understand the ripple effect of what she had done, but she knew she could not turn away. She had chosen to protect, and that choice mattered. And then she noticed something else, a distant sound, faint but growing. The roar of motorcycles in the distance, engines echoing like thunder. She didn't know who was coming or what it meant, but for the first time since stepping into the alley, a tiny spark of hope flickered in her chest. But for now, she focused only on the present. The man behind her, the attackers in front of her, and the simple truth that she would not leave him alone, no matter the cost. It was a choice she had made, a moment she had embraced, and she would carry it, no matter what happened next. The city around them was indifferent, the alleys dark and narrow, the night cold and unfeeling. Yet within that small space, something extraordinary was unfolding. Lily, a homeless girl who had learned to survive by being invisible, was standing tall, defying fear, and showing a stranger that courage could exist even in the most unlikely places. As the seconds stretched, Lily felt exhaustion begin to settle into her bones. Her arms ached, her legs trembled, and yet she held her ground. She remembered the notebook in her backpack, the sketches she drew of moments she wished could be different. Maybe this would be one of them, a moment that could become a story of hope, a story of someone standing up when no one else would. And so, in that dark alley with the wind biting at her face and the sounds of the city echoing around them, Lily remained. She did not flinch, did not step back, and did not falter. She had chosen to act, and that choice, no matter the cost, defined her more than the hardships of the streets ever could. The cold night seemed to grow even colder as Lily remained in the alley, shielding the man from harm. Her arms ached from holding herself steady, her legs trembled, and small cuts on her hands stung sharply. But she refused to step back. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, heavy and unyielding, yet it was a weight she had chosen to carry. She couldn't explain why she was doing this. Perhaps it was the memory of the older woman from the shelter, or maybe it was just her instinct to protect someone in need. Whatever the reason, she knew one thing for sure: she could not abandon the man to face danger alone. The attackers had grown frustrated. Their initial surprise at Lily's courage had faded, replaced by irritation. They didn't understand why someone so small and seemingly vulnerable would risk herself for another person. One of them stepped closer, trying to intimidate her with a glare. Lily felt her heart hammering, but she held her ground, planting her feet firmly on the cold concrete. "Leave him alone!" she shouted again, her voice shaking slightly but stronger than before. The man she was protecting watched her with wide eyes. He wanted to help, but fear held him back. "You don't have to do this," he whispered, his voice almost lost in the harsh night air. Lily shook her head, determination burning in her eyes. "I want to. I can't just watch them hurt you. Not tonight." Her words seemed to confuse the attackers even more. They exchanged glances, unsure how to respond to someone who refused to be frightened. For a brief moment, Lily felt a strange sense of power, not the power of strength or size, but the power of courage. Her small, trembling frame held its ground against people who thought they could intimidate anyone into submission. But courage alone could not shield her from the harsh reality of the situation. One of the attackers lunged toward her. Lily barely had time to brace herself. She was pushed roughly to the ground, her knees scraping against the rough concrete. Pain shot through her body, but she gritted her teeth and pushed herself up again. She couldn't let them see her falter. Not now. The man behind her wanted to step in, but she shook her head again. "No," she said firmly. "I've got this. Just stay back." She didn't know where this sudden surge of bravery came from, but it carried her through each moment. She had survived the streets for years, seen hardship and cruelty that would have broken most people, yet somehow she found strength in protecting someone else. Her mind raced. She remembered the nights she had spent huddled under bridges, wishing someone would notice her, wishing someone would care. Now she was the one who cared for another person, even when it meant risking herself. It was strange and terrifying, but also exhilarating in a way she hadn't felt in years. The attackers were relentless. They pushed, shoved, and tried to intimidate her further, but Lily held her ground. She felt small, fragile, and yet incredibly alive. Each movement, each breath, was a defiance against the world that had taught her to hide, to be invisible. Now, for the first time, she was refusing to be invisible, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. The man she had saved watched in awe. He had never met anyone like Lily, someone so unafraid to face danger for the sake of another. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly, genuinely curious. Lily looked at him, her face bloodied slightly from scrapes and bruises, and shrugged. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just couldn't let them hurt you. I couldn't turn away." The words hung in the air. There was no heroism in them, no pretense, just a simple truth. Lily didn't need recognition or thanks. She only knew she was doing what felt right. And in a world that had taught her to look out only for herself, that simple act of compassion made her feel stronger than she ever had. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Lily's body ached, her breathing was heavy, and yet she remained standing. She noticed small details around her: the flickering light above the alley, the discarded papers blowing in the wind, the faint smell of rain that had not yet fallen. It was as if the world around her had slowed, giving her the space to act, to think, to survive. The attackers seemed to grow more frustrated. Their attempts to intimidate her were failing. Every shove, every threat, every step they took forward was met with Lily's unwavering presence. She wasn't just protecting the man, she was making a statement. She was showing that courage could exist even in the smallest, most unlikely people. Her mind drifted back to the time when she had first ended up on the streets. She remembered the cold nights, the empty stomachs, the loneliness that gnawed at her heart. She had learned to survive by being quiet, by staying in the shadows. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was refusing to stay in the shadows. She was choosing to stand in the light, to act, to make a difference. The man behind her reached out, trying to help her stand after she stumbled from a push. Lily waved him off gently. "I've got it," she said again, more softly this time. She could feel the warmth of his gratitude, the silent acknowledgement of her bravery, and it strengthened her resolve. Time seemed to blur. Lily didn't know how long she had been holding her ground, didn't know how long the attackers would continue. All she knew was that she could not move, could not give in, could not let them harm the man she had decided to protect. Each moment was a battle of wills, a test of courage, and she refused to fail. Her thoughts drifted to the future. She didn't know what would happen after this night, didn't know if she would walk away unharmed or if the world would continue to be cruel. But in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was standing firm, holding her ground, and protecting someone who could not protect himself. The attackers grew more aggressive, but Lily's determination only intensified. She was no longer just defending another person. She was defending her own sense of self, her own belief that even in a harsh, unforgiving world, people could act with courage and kindness. It was a small victory in a larger, often cruel world, but it was a victory nonetheless. As the minutes stretched on, exhaustion began to set in. Lily's arms shook, her legs quivered, and small bruises began to form where she had been pushed. Yet she refused to collapse. She refused to give the attackers the satisfaction of seeing her yield. She was standing for something bigger than herself, and that gave her strength she didn't know she had. Then, just as the tension seemed unbearable, Lily noticed a distant sound, a low rumble that grew steadily louder. She squinted down the alley, her curiosity piqued despite the pain and fear. The sound grew, and she realized it was the roar of motorcycles approaching. Her heart raced, a mixture of fear and hope coursing through her. She didn't know who was coming, but she felt a strange sense that help might be near. The attackers noticed it too. Their confidence wavered slightly as the noise grew louder, and Lily saw them glance nervously toward the alley entrance. She didn't understand fully what it meant yet, but she held her ground, refusing to let it distract her from her duty. She could see the man behind her relax slightly, relief flickering across his face. He had been terrified moments ago, unsure of what would happen, but now he clung to the hope that something was changing, that perhaps this night would not end in harm. Lily's mind raced. She didn't know who was coming, how they would intervene, or what would happen next. All she knew was that she had acted out of courage, out of compassion, and that act alone had shifted something in the night. The alley, once filled with tension and fear, now held a different kind of electricity, a sense that change was coming. And so, battered, bruised, but unyielding, Lily continued to stand. She held the man behind her, shielding him from the unknown and the immediate, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. In the darkness of the alley, amidst the harshness of the streets and the cold bite of the night, she had found a strength she didn't know she possessed, a courage that would define her, not just for this night, but for everything that came after. The roar of motorcycles grew louder still, echoing off the walls of the alley, a signal that the moment she had been waiting for was approaching. Lily didn't know what lay ahead, didn't know who was coming to their aid, but she remained steadfast. She had chosen to act, to protect, to stand. That choice had already changed the night, and perhaps, in ways she couldn't yet see, it would change everything. The rumble of motorcycles grew louder with every passing second, echoing through the narrow alley like the beating of distant drums. Lily's heart pounded as she glanced toward the source of the sound. At first, she had thought it was just a passing group of bikers, but now she realized there were dozens of them, maybe hundreds, approaching. The sheer number of engines, the rhythmic roar that reverberated off the walls, made her feel both terrified and oddly safe at the same time. The attackers, who had been trying to intimidate her just moments ago, suddenly froze. Their confident expressions faltered as the noise grew closer, and they exchanged uncertain glances. Lily could see their hesitation, and it gave her a surge of courage. Even though she was battered, bruised, and exhausted, she felt a renewed strength within her. Somehow she had held on long enough for help to arrive. As the first motorcycles appeared at the mouth of the alley, Lily caught sight of them, a massive group of bikers, all wearing similar jackets with bold insignias. The sight was overwhelming. There were so many that they filled the street beyond the alley, their engines roaring in unison. The presence of so many people, each radiating a quiet but unmistakable authority, made the attackers step back instinctively. Fear flickered across their faces. Lily's mind raced. She didn't recognize the bikers personally, but she sensed immediately that they were here to help. There was a sense of order in their chaos, a discipline in the way they approached. One of the bikers, riding at the front, raised a hand, and the others slowed, forming a protective wall around the alley. The man behind Lily instinctively stepped closer to her, as if instinctively understanding that these bikers meant safety. The attackers tried to stand their ground, but the sheer number and presence of the bikers were too much. The air in the alley felt charged, almost electric, as the bikers dismounted, moving with a quiet confidence that silenced the threat. They didn't rush in angrily, they didn't yell or threaten. Their presence alone communicated authority, respect, and most importantly, protection. Lily's eyes widened as one of the bikers approached her carefully. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes that contrasted sharply with the tough exterior of his leather jacket. He crouched slightly, just enough to meet her gaze. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, his voice calm but firm. She nodded, still shaking from adrenaline and pain, unable to speak at first. The man she had protected peeked over her shoulder, equally astonished. The bikers began to speak quietly among themselves, coordinating, ensuring that the attackers were no longer a threat. Lily watched in awe as they surrounded her and the man she had protected. Despite their intimidating appearance, there was a careful, almost protective energy in the way they moved. It was clear they were not here to punish, but to ensure that no harm came to those who had been threatened. One of the bikers offered Lily a bottle of water, and she accepted it gratefully, her hands trembling as she drank. The simple act of kindness, after everything she had endured that night, brought tears to her eyes. She had spent so many nights on the streets, invisible to the world, unnoticed and alone. And yet here were dozens of people who had come to protect a stranger, and her, without hesitation. The man she had protected spoke up, his voice filled with awe and gratitude. "I don't know what to say, thank you." Lily shook her head, still holding the bottle with both hands. "No need to thank me," she whispered. I couldn't let them hurt you, I had to do something." The bikers seemed to understand. They didn't ask for explanations or question her motives. Instead, they offered her quiet support, forming a shield around her while keeping the attackers at bay. Lily realized that courage, kindness, and selflessness could sometimes attract help in unexpected ways. The bikers' presence was a testament to the fact that the world, while harsh, could also be unexpectedly generous and protective. The attackers, realizing they were completely outnumbered and outmatched, slowly backed away. Their bravado had evaporated in the face of overwhelming presence and authority. Lily watched them retreat down the alley, feeling a mixture of relief and astonishment. She had never imagined that one act of bravery could ripple outward in such a powerful way. The bikers began to assess the situation more closely. One of them, perhaps a leader, approached Lily and gently checked her for injuries. "You've been brave," he said softly. "You didn't have to do what you did, but you did." "That's not easy." Lily's eyes filled with tears, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming emotions of relief, gratitude, and pride. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not just noticed, but truly seen for her courage and heart. The man she had saved spoke again, this time with more confidence. "I owe you my life," he said. "I don't know what would have happened if you weren't here." Lily shook her head gently. "I just did what I felt was right," she replied. "That's all I could do." The bikers stood nearby, keeping watch as the night slowly settled. Their presence was reassuring, a reminder that courage was never wasted. Lily realized that her decision to act, to put herself in danger for someone else, had created a chain reaction that she could not have anticipated. She had been invisible for so long, yet now she was surrounded by people who respected and protected her. As the night progressed, Lily began to feel a strange sense of calm. The immediate danger had passed, and though her body was sore and bruised, her spirit felt renewed. She looked around at the bikers, the man she had protected, and the now empty alley, and she understood something profound. Even in the darkest moments, courage and compassion could create a powerful force that attracted help, support, and understanding. The leader of the bikers approached her again, a gentle smile on his face. "You did something very important tonight," he said. "You stood up when most people would have turned away. That takes a lot of courage." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never thought of herself as brave. She had survived, yes, but bravery had always seemed like something reserved for others, heroes in movies or stories. But tonight, she realized that courage wasn't about size or strength. It was about standing up when it mattered, even when it was difficult or scary. The man she had protected added, "I don't know if I could have faced them without you. You gave me a chance to survive." Lily nodded, taking in his words. She had acted instinctively, not thinking about recognition or reward, and yet here it was. Gratitude, acknowledgement, and the sense that she had made a real difference. The bikers began to speak among themselves, planning how to escort the man safely through the city. Lily watched, still in awe of the way they operated. Despite their tough appearance, there was a sense of order, respect, and care in their actions. They were protectors in a world that often seemed indifferent, and for Lily, witnessing this was as impactful as any act of courage she had performed that night. She felt a tap on her shoulder and turned to see one of the bikers offering her a jacket to keep warm. She hesitated for a moment but accepted it gratefully, feeling the weight of kindness and care in the simple gesture. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, valued, and important, not because of anything she had earned materially, but because of the courage and heart she had shown. The man she had protected was escorted safely away, surrounded by bikers who made sure nothing could harm him. Lily watched him go, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. She had acted out of instinct, out of compassion, and the outcome had been far greater than she could have imagined. As the bikers began to depart, Lily realized that this night had changed her forever. She had learned that courage was not about being fearless, but about standing up despite fear. She had learned that kindness and bravery could ripple outward in ways that she could never predict. And most importantly, she had learned that even in a harsh, indifferent world, there were people ready to step in and protect those who acted with heart. The alley, once filled with tension and fear, was now quiet. The motorcycles disappeared into the distance, leaving only the memory of their presence and the lingering warmth of protection. Lily stood there, exhausted but exhilarated, bruised but proud. She knew that the streets would still be harsh and that life would still challenge her, but she had proven something to herself. She was capable of courage, capable of compassion, and capable of making a difference in the world. For the first time in years, Lily felt hope. Hope that even in the darkest places, light could emerge. Hope that her actions, no matter how small, could ripple outward and create change. And hope that she, a homeless girl who had spent so many nights invisible, could step into the world with confidence, knowing that courage and kindness were her strongest allies. The night had finally grown quiet. The roar of motorcycles that had filled the city streets earlier had faded into the distance, leaving only the soft hum of the urban night and the distant sounds of traffic. Lily remained in the alley for a few moments longer, leaning against the cold brick wall, her body aching, her clothes torn, but her heart lighter than it had been in years. She felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, bruised yet proud, fearful yet filled with a sense of achievement she had never known before. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt visible. Not in the way that people sometimes glance at you out of pity or indifference, but visible in the sense that she mattered, that her actions had meaning, that someone, many people in fact, had recognized her courage and compassion. She thought back to the night, to the moment she had decided to step in for a stranger, and marveled at how one choice could change so much. The man she had protected had disappeared into the city with the biker's escort, but she knew he was safe. She pictured him walking away, perhaps pausing to look back with a sense of gratitude and relief. That thought brought a small, genuine smile to her face. In her life on the streets, such moments were rare. Most days were filled with struggle and invisibility, with being overlooked and underestimated. But tonight was different. Tonight, she had made a real difference, and that difference mattered. As she walked out of the alley, her steps slow but steady, Lily began to notice the subtle beauty of the city at night. The streetlights cast a warm glow on the pavement, reflecting softly in puddles left by a recent drizzle. She passed by closed shops, their shutters painted with graffiti and worn from years of neglect. Yet somehow, even in decay, the city held a quiet charm. It was a city that had been cruel to her, yes, but it was also a city that had allowed this moment of courage, this moment of humanity, to shine through. She thought about the bikers, their unexpected arrival, their silent protection, the kindness they had shown despite their tough appearance. They had reminded her that courage could be recognized and rewarded, that even the smallest acts of bravery could ripple outward and touch others in ways she could never anticipate. Lily realized that her choice to act, to put herself in danger for someone else, had not only saved a life, but had also given her a new sense of identity. She was not just a homeless girl surviving day by day. She was someone capable of making a difference, someone capable of standing up when it mattered most. The city seemed quieter now, almost reverent, as if it, too, acknowledged the significance of what had happened. Lily found a small bench near a street corner and sat down, taking a moment to rest. She thought about her past, the nights she had spent alone under bridges, the hunger, the fear, and the loneliness that had been her constant companions. She remembered the people who had helped her along the way, the shelter workers, the kind strangers who offered a warm meal or a smile. And she realized that, in some ways, tonight had been an extension of that kindness. She had acted with the same spirit of care and courage that others had shown her. As she sat there, she began to reflect on the lessons she had learned. Courage was not about being fearless, it was about standing up despite fear. Compassion was not about expecting reward, it was about acting because it was right. And hope, even in the darkest times, could be found in the smallest acts of bravery. These were truths she had learned in a single night, truths that would stay with her forever. The streets were emptying as the night grew later. Most people had retreated to their homes, unaware of the extraordinary events that had taken place in that quiet alley. Lily, however, felt fully awake, alive in a way she hadn't felt for years. She had faced danger, acted selflessly, and survived. More than that, she had created connections. Connections that reminded her that the world was not entirely cruel, that there were people willing to step in and protect those in need, and that her actions could inspire others in ways she had never imagined. She thought about her life ahead. She didn't have much, a few belongings, a rough coat, a tattered blanket, but she had something more important now, confidence, courage, and a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time, she believed that she could shape her own future, that she could choose not just to survive, but to live with intention, to act with integrity, and to make a difference in ways big or small. Her mind wandered back to the man she had protected. She hoped he would carry the memory of her bravery with him, just as she would carry the memory of the biker's arrival. Each person she had encountered that night had left a mark on her soul, a reminder that life, despite its hardships, was filled with moments of unexpected grace and humanity. As dawn approached, the city began to stir. The first hints of sunlight touched the rooftops, casting a soft glow over the streets. Lily stood, stretching her aching muscles, and felt a quiet sense of determination settle within her. She knew that the streets would still be challenging, that danger and hardship would still exist, but she also knew that she had the strength to face them. She had discovered a courage that could not be taken away, a heart capable of compassion, and a spirit resilient enough to endure whatever came next. She walked toward a nearby cafe that had just opened, hoping for a warm cup of tea and perhaps a chance to gather her thoughts before the day fully began. As she stepped inside, the smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods wrapped around her like a gentle embrace. The cashier greeted her with a friendly smile, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt entirely at ease. She had survived the night, yes, but more importantly, she had discovered the power of her own courage and the impact of her actions. Sitting by the window, sipping her tea, Lily watched the city come alive. People hurried by, unaware of the extraordinary events that had unfolded just hours before. But Lily didn't mind. She carried the story in her heart, a story of bravery, compassion, and unexpected support. It was a story that would guide her, inspire her, and remind her that even in the harshest circumstances, courage and kindness could create ripples far beyond what anyone could see. She thought about the bikers one last time, imagining their departure down the streets, their engines fading into the distance. They had shown her that appearances could be deceiving, that strength came in many forms, and that the world still had guardians, people willing to stand up for others, to protect, to guide, and to inspire. That knowledge gave her hope for the future, hope that no matter how invisible one might feel, there were ways to make a meaningful difference. Lily finished her tea and stepped back into the streets. The sun was rising now, casting a warm, golden light over the city. She felt renewed, stronger, and more alive than she had in years. She knew that life on the streets would still challenge her, that uncertainty and danger were never far away, but she also knew that she could face them with courage. She had discovered something fundamental about herself, that she was not powerless, that she could act with bravery, and that one person's choices could create a ripple of change in ways she might never fully understand. As she walked toward the busier part of the city, Lily felt a sense of purpose settling within her. She didn't know what the future held, but she did know that she would face it with strength, courage, and compassion. She would continue to help others when she could, to stand up when it mattered, and to live a life guided by the lessons of that extraordinary night. Even though her body was tired and her clothes still carried the marks of the alley, her spirit felt light. She had faced fear, acted selflessly, and discovered the power of her own heart. The world, she realized, was not entirely cruel. It had moments of kindness, moments of protection, and moments where courage shone brighter than darkness. And she, Lily, had been at the center of one of those moments. She walked on, the streets gradually filling with the sounds of morning. Children laughed as they walked to school, vendors prepared their stalls, and the city slowly came alive. Lily carried with her the memory of the night, the fear, the courage, the unexpected arrival of the bikers, and the knowledge that she had made a difference. It was a memory that would guide her, inspire her, and remind her always that bravery was not about being fearless, but about standing up when it mattered most. And so, as the sun rose higher, painting the city in shades of gold and warmth, Lily stepped into a new day with a new understanding of herself and the world. She was stronger than she had known, braver than she had believed, and capable of acts of compassion that could ripple outward to touch lives she had never imagined. She was no longer just a girl surviving the streets. She was someone who had chosen courage, someone who had acted with heart, and someone whose story would not be forgotten.